You know something interesting most people don't really say out loud? There's a certain kind of man. You'll meet him later in life. He's not loud. He's not trying to prove anything anymore. But he's calm, gentle, deeply sweet in a way that feels almost romantic without even trying. He listens more than he speaks. He smiles like he understands life a little too well. And somehow, just being around him feels safe. And you start wondering, how does someone age like that? Because then you also meet another kind of person, same age, same life timeline. But something feels different. Tired energy, closed heart. Life feels heavy on their face. And that's when the question starts to whisper itself. Why do some people become more loving, softer, even more attractive with age, while others slowly lose that light? Carl Jung once said something powerful. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And maybe that's the secret nobody tells you. Some people don't just grow older, they grow into themselves. And when a person finally stops pretending, stops resisting life, stops fighting who they are, something beautiful happens. They don't become old. They become deeply human, soft, real, magnetic in a quiet way. And today, we're going to talk about that. Why some people stay mentally young, emotionally warm, and strangely full of life. Even when time keeps moving forward. Not from skincare, not from money, but from psychology. The kind Carl Jung spent his life trying to point us toward. And by the end of this, you might realize something surprising. Maybe aging was never the problem. Maybe forgetting yourself was. So let's not rush this. Let's talk like we're sitting somewhere peaceful. No pressure, just real talk. Because the first secret is where everything begins. Secret 1. The inner child doesn't die. Rule. Let me ask you something simple. When was the last time you did something just because it felt fun? Not useful, not productive. Just fun, not scrolling, not working, not surviving. I mean real joy. Because according to Jung, inside every adult, there's still a child living quietly in the background. And here's the interesting part. People who stay mentally young don't kill that child. They don't silence it. They don't shame it. They keep it alive. Now listen carefully. Most people don't age because of time. They age because they slowly disconnect from joy. They stop playing. They stop laughing at small things. They stop being curious. Everything becomes serious. Everything becomes life pressure. And slowly, the mind starts to harden. But people who stay young, they still get excited over small things. A beautiful sky, a good song, a funny moment, a random conversation that goes nowhere but feels good. And Jung would say something like this. When the inner child is ignored, the soul becomes heavy. And heavy souls age faster. So let me ask you directly. When was the last time you laughed so much you forgot your problems for a second? Yeah, think about that, because this is not about acting childish. It's about not killing the part of you that still feels alive. Secret 2. Stop identifying with your age. Now this one is going to sound a little strange at first, but stay with me. Most people don't just have an age. They become their age. I'm 40, so I should act like this. I'm 50, so I can't do that. I'm too old for this. I'm past my time. And without realizing it, they build a mental cage, a personality shaped by numbers. But here's what Jung would hint at. You are not your age, you are your consciousness. And consciousness doesn't age the same way the body does. Think about people you've met who feel young even at 70. They don't think in limits. They don't say, it's too late. They don't sit inside identity boxes. They still try things, still explore, still ask questions. And that energy, that openness, keeps the mind flexible, because the moment the mind becomes rigid, Aging speeds up, not physically first, mentally. And mental aging always shows up on the face later. So when someone looks old beyond their years, it's often not the skin, it's the thinking. So let me say this slowly. Every time you say, "I can't because of my age," you are not describing reality. You are shaping your future energy, and that energy starts to close you off from life. Secret. 3. Emotional flow is youthful energy. Now this one is deep, but very simple. People who stay young emotionally don't trap feelings inside. They don't hold grudges like luggage. They don't store anger for years like it's a treasure. They feel, and they release. That's it. But most people, they collect emotional weight, a bad relationship from 10 years ago, a betrayal from family, a disappointment they never processed, and they carry it every day like invisible stones in a backpack. Now imagine walking with that for 10, 20, 30 years. Of course the body feels tired. Of course the eyes lose light. Because emotional stagnation creates psychological aging. Carl Jung talked a lot about something similar. He called it the unconscious burden. The parts of us we refuse to feel don't disappear. They sit inside us and quietly drain life energy. So let me ask you something real. Who are you still emotionally carrying that you need to release? Not for them, for you. Because when emotions flow, life feels lighter, and lightness is youth. That's the connection most people miss. Secret 4. Curiosity is the anti-aging force. Now listen carefully to this one. Curiosity is not just personality. It is biological youth energy. Because the moment someone stops being curious, they stop growing internally. And when growth stops, aging begins mentally. Think about children. They ask everything. Why is this like that? What happens if I do this? Why does the sky change color? They don't care if they look silly. They just want to understand life. Now compare that to most adults. They already know everything. They stop asking questions. They stop exploring new ideas. They stop being surprised. And that's where something slowly fades. Not life, but aliveness. Carl Jung believed something powerful here. The psyche needs exploration the same way the body needs oxygen. So when curiosity dies, something inside starts to collapse quietly. But when curiosity stays alive, even an older person feels mentally fresh, because every new question reawakens the brain, reactivates imagination, rebuilds emotional energy. So I want you to think about this honestly. When was the last time you were curious about something, just for the joy of it? Not for money, not for productivity, just curiosity, because that might be the part of you that's been asleep. Secret 5. Living from the true self, not the mask. Now this is where everything connects. Most people don't live as themselves. They live as a version of themselves they think the world will accept. A mask, a social identity, a personality built for approval. Jung called this the persona. And here's the truth. The longer someone lives inside a mask, the more exhausted they become. Because pretending is heavy, smiling when you don't feel it is heavy, saying yes when your soul says no is heavy, and over time, that weight shows up physically. But people who stay young emotionally, they become more authentic with age, not less. They stop performing life. They start living it. They say what they feel, respectfully. They walk away from what drains them. They stop trying to impress everyone. And something beautiful happens. Energy comes back. Because energy was never lost. It was just being spent on pretending. So I'll leave you with this thought before we continue deeper. What version of you are you still performing that you no longer need? Because the closer you get to your real self, the lighter you become, and lightness is youth. And now listen. We're just getting started. Because what comes next goes even deeper into the unconscious patterns that silently decide how fast a person ages emotionally, and why some people seem to glow even when life should have broken them. If you're still here, stay with me. Because the next part will change how you see stress, identity, and even happiness itself. So let's bring this all together, slowly, like we're just sitting back and letting it settle in. What we really explored today was never just about staying young. It was about something deeper, something most people don't notice until later in life. Because youth isn't only in the body, it's in the mind that still feels open. It's in the heart that still feels light. It's in the spirit that hasn't given up on life yet. We talked about the inner child, the part of you that still wants to laugh, explore, and feel joy without needing a reason. We talked about how age becomes heavy when you start living inside limits, when I can't becomes louder than what if. We talked about emotions, and how unhealed pain doesn't just disappear. It quietly shapes your energy over time. We talked about curiosity, that quiet spark that keeps the mind flexible and alive. And we talked about the mask, the version of you that performs for the world, while the real you slowly waits underneath. And maybe the biggest truth hidden in all of this is simple. People don't become old just because time passes. They become old when life stops feeling new. Now I want to leave you with something to think about, not as advice, but as reflection. If your life today had to reflect your inner state, would it look light or heavy? Would it feel open or closed? And don't rush that question. Just sit with it for a second. Because most people are walking around carrying things they never actually processed. Smiles they forced. Words they swallowed. Moments they said, "I'm fine," when they weren't. And over time, all of that doesn't disappear. It just becomes the atmosphere you live in. That's why some people don't even need to say anything. You can feel it when they walk into a room, not because they are bad or broken, but because something inside them feels tight, compressed, unfinished. And then there are others. They don't even have to try. There's a softness around them, a lightness, a kind of calm that makes you breathe differently when you're near them. And you start realizing something important. It was never really about age. It was always about what the inside feels like, because the inside always finds a way to show itself on the outside, through your eyes, through your voice, through the way you react to life. Now think about your own life for a moment. Not the version you show people, not the version you post, but the version you actually feel when everything is quiet. Does it feel open, like there's space in you, space to breathe, space to grow, space to be wrong, space to start again? Or does it feel closed, like you're constantly holding things in, holding your emotions, holding your expectations, holding your pain, holding yourself together just to function? Because here's what nobody really tells you clearly enough. The mind doesn't age just because time passes. It ages when it stops feeling free. And freedom doesn't always mean changing your entire life. Sometimes it's something much smaller, but much deeper. It's the moment you stop performing who you think you should be, and start allowing yourself to just be honest, even if it's messy, even if it's imperfect, even if it's not impressive. Because the truth is, a lot of people are not tired from life. They are tired from pretending through life. And the moment you start choosing honesty over performance, something inside you exhales for the first time in a long time. You don't realize it immediately, but you feel it in small ways. You react less. You think clearer. You stop carrying conversations in your head for days. You stop replaying moments that don't matter. And slowly, your energy starts coming back to you, not because life changed, but because you stopped fighting yourself inside it. And then curiosity starts returning too. You start noticing small things again. You start asking questions again. You start being interested in life again instead of just surviving it. And that's when something very subtle happens. You don't just get older anymore. You become more alive again. Not louder, not richer, not more perfect, just more present, more real, more you. And maybe that's the part of life most people miss. They think aging is about losing something. But in reality, what most people lose is connection. Connection to themselves. Connection to joy. Connection to curiosity. Connection to the simple feeling of being here without needing to fix everything. And when that connection returns, even a little bit, life starts to feel different again. Lighter conversations, softer reactions, a quieter mind, a warmer heart. And you begin to understand something you can't really explain logically, but you feel it deeply. That being alive was never supposed to feel like pressure. It was supposed to feel like experience, like breathing, like noticing, like being here, without constantly escaping yourself. And I'll leave you with this, not as advice, but as something to sit with tonight, if your inner world was a home. Would you feel comfortable living inside it? Or would you feel like you're always trying to escape it? Because the goal was never perfection, it was presence, and presence changes everything. Before you go, if this video spoke to you even a little bit, don't just scroll away and forget it. Subscribe to the channel, not just as a button, but as a reminder to come back to yourself more often. Because we don't just talk about life here, we slow it down, we question it, we feel it. And if you've made it this far with me, then maybe this space is for you too. So hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.